What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Hot mics.
Hey
Audio.
guys, how's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to Recovery Chat on Living Hopeful. Hope everybody had a great week. We had a great week here. Nothing to complain about. We're here with Better Late Than Never Bob Matthews.
For reputation, I'll
We're going to be discussing medically assisted treatment tonight. If you have any questions that you would like to ask in regards to medically assisted treatment, we'll try to answer them to the best of our knowledge. If you have any other questions or concerns, anything bothering you right now, please feel free to jump into the comments. Let us know what your questions are. We will give you share our experience with you. If you want to call in, we will be opening the phone line in shortly. So that would be 267-737-8031. Again, we want to keep things as nice as possible. This is a heated topic. So we just want to remember that we do not judge anyone here on Living Hopeful. Everybody has their own pathway to recovery, and, sharing your experience on those pathways may help somebody else along the way, somebody that may not have been able to do the 12-step, somebody that may not have been able to do the MET. So please feel free to, jump in on the comments. Feel free to call in, ask questions, and if you have anything at all on your chest bothering you that you just need to get off, please feel free to enter in the comments or call in. Again, we have Bob Matthews. He is with Living Grin, and actually he is our moderator for our parent family group at Living Grin every Tuesday. And Pappy is with us tonight.
Hello. Play a big man voice.
So welcome, Bob, and we're going to watch the comments. If you have something that you need to throw up there, please feel free to.
All right. Yeah. Hey. Well, first I want to thank Lori and Pappy for having me again tonight. I think it was exactly a month ago I was here.
Probably, yeah.
It's our pleasure, Bob. You're a delight.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And you can't have better hosts than these two right here. And also young Richard over there too, who's
our audio guy.
He's our
Audio.
producer.
This is a really, like I said last time, this is a very impressive operation over here, technically and really pretty good stuff. It's even better now than it was last month. Actually, you got a new mic too.
New mic. Got a sound booth out there now.
Yeah, sound booth. Yeah.
And the cameras move around. So
Yeah.
Hey, we got 3 camera angles.
yeah.
This is
Got
a
a banner up in the back.
This is a great operation here.
Come on, son, sit down.
Yeah.
You're stealing my spotlight.
And stay tuned afterward. Pappy has his cooking show here.
Yeah, it's cooking with Pappy.
Cooking with Pat, late night cooking with Pappy. So I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. It would be nice nightcap after this
Yeah.
topic tonight. And next week I'm preceding John Cronbar, the famous John
Oh,
Cronbar.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be a good show, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be a big draw there. John
Oh,
Cronbar.
he is like the Prince of Parkwood, I hear. I'm
Prince of Parkwood, John Cronbar, yes.
very well known.
So, Lori, this is the first time I've actually ever given a little talk about Matt, M-A-T, no, not Matt Dell, Matt, M-A-T. One of my buddies in the field here. MAT, medicated assisted treatment. And it's a pretty broad topic, and so Lori asked me to come in and talk about it because she knows, Lori and Pappy know that I've worked with patients who have been part of their treatment was medicated assisted treatment, and so even though now I want to say I'm not a medical professional, I work in a sort of I do work in a field that is considered a medical field, and I used to work in residential treatment and detox, and now I work in outpatient treatment. So I worked with a lot of patients who kind of, again, they had this form of treatment, and Lori said it could become controversial. That's true. It can be. There are certain parts of medicated or medication-assisted treatment that I guess have become controversial in one way or another in society. And so, in other words, there are people have different opinions on these medications and this form of treatment. We'll go into them. We'll go into the different forms of medication-assisted treatment. But overall, again, it's a very broad. When you say medication-assisted treatment, Matt, it's not one form of treatment. It's very broad. Okay, so I always start off when I talk to people about this. And again, this is my first time really doing a lecture on it. But when I talk informally to people, I say, well, listen, anything can be a medication assisted treatment, right? So in the field of substance abuse treatment, medication-assisted treatment is simply anything that would help relieve one's symptoms. Okay, so in other words, it could be like when a patient goes into a hospital detox setting, right, and they're coming off of a drug or alcohol. There are medications used to get them. Well, to make them feel better, to stabilize them medically, physically, and mentally. Okay, so they become stabilized through these medications. It makes them feel comfortable, or it could also these medications can also assist in preventing any dangerous neurological conditions like seizures and such. And it's very so. It's very broad, and then there are maintenance medications, and we'll talk about those too. So there are medications to kind of help with the detox process, and there are medications that can help with one's ongoing recovery, right? So now the word recovery, well, there's treatment and there's recovery, okay? And there's a lot of overlap between them. Treatment is basically a professional, a medical or psychological service that's rendered to help people, with medical issues, mental health issues, and it's usually, there's a cost to it, and a lot of times most times covered by insurance, or at least hopefully.
Right.
So hopefully, so it's a professional service, and there's recovery, which is a lifestyle basically. Recovery is a lifestyle, and recovery, recovery can start in treatment, right? But it continues after treatment, and hopefully the rest of one's life, right? Recovery basically has three components, and it's pretty widely agreed upon, three components. So there's the physical/biological, there's the mental, and there's the spiritual. And medication-assisted treatment, and really, I'm just putting this really simply, it helps with the medical, physical part or biological part of treatment, okay? And the medications I'll be talking about deal mostly with the medical, although you can argue it also helps with the mental too. And there are medications that help with the mental part of treatment too. And then if one has stabilized medically or physically and mentally, they can work on, other things in life too, including spiritual growth, right? There's the spiritual aspect of treatment. When I say spiritual, I don't necessarily mean religious. It can mean that, but it's more of the spiritual growth that we all go through in life, right? We grow as people, and we look outside of ourselves and so forth. And so these medications can be really good in stabilizing people. Okay, they could be really good at preventing symptoms, and they could also be good for preventing future use of drugs. Okay, so again, medication-assisted treatment is very broad, and you can't say all medication-assisted treatment is controversial, or because really a lot of it's not, but some, like Lori said, sometimes it can be, and we will go into that. Okay, so today I'm going to focus on medication-assisted treatment that would help someone in recovery from drugs and alcohol. I'm going to focus on that. Okay, so when people go into detox, right, they're usually in a pretty bad spot, right, when they go into detox. And there's a lot of, as a lot of you guys know, there are withdrawal symptoms people go through, and there are all kinds of medical conditions caused, damage caused by chemical use, and then there's an effect on somebody's, on your mental state as well, when you're thinking. People usually are not in a good place when they go into detox. So we use medications to help people, get from point A to point B, okay, and get stabilized, okay. So if someone goes to treatment for opiates, there are certain medications that are used. Subutex is one, okay, which is also a form of buprenorphine, and that's used to. It's really an opiate replacement, is what it is. Okay, so it's an opiate. It's both an opiate agonist and an antagonist. Okay, when I say agonist, I'm getting a little technical here. A little bit of pharmacology. An agonist is a.
It's not somebody who doesn't believe in God, by the way.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. That's what agnostic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Good thing you clarified that. Somebody might have, it's an easy to confuse those two terms. So an agonist is simply, it's a chemical that will simply latch onto a receptor and fill it up. Okay, so it's a substitute in the receptor in the brain. and Subutex will go into the receptor site and fill it up. So basically, it's giving what it's doing is it's giving an opiate-like feeling, okay, and it'll ward off withdrawal symptoms, okay. So that's used among other drugs for people when they go in for opiate detox, and then when people go in for the detox from alcohol, there are medications to comfort them as well too. Okay, antidepressants can be used, and then when people go into treatment for benzodiazepine addiction, right? Xanax, Klonopin, often barbiturates would be used. Okay, barbiturates to kind of to calm them down. Okay, and then when people are in treatment for coming off of the stimulants like cocaine, crack, crystal meth, they'll be given oftentimes like a blood pressure medication like Catapress or Inderol, something like that. It takes the edge off their anxiety. Okay, so there's a protocol for each detox. Okay, and so I just gave you examples of the ways that medications can be used in the detox setting, on the detox level of care. Okay, I'm going to move on to.
That's the one thing, like you were
of
saying,
course, yeah.
the first 24 hours are critical.
Mhm.
Like you say, you have to stabilize them and get them on the right path. That's when most people will go AMA on you,
Yeah,
unless they're not
Yeah.
feeling comfortable and all. So,
right.
you know, it's necessary to interject at that point with some kind of comfort meds, you know, to take the edge off, like you said, to put them in a better frame of mind.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they just want to take off on you, you know, it's very hard.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, no, that's Pappy, that's a great point. As Pappy said, that time period in detox for patients is really it's a very sensitive window of time because they're very vulnerable. Like they're not feeling well, and when they're feeling terrible. Well, what's a way to feel good? Hightail it out of there and go back to where they would do whatever they were doing.
Right, exactly.
You know?
And, you know, so you gotta give an alternative and
Yeah.
make them comfortable as possible to get them over that initial the hurdle. I mean, and before you could even start getting into the mentally or anything, talking to them,
Yeah.
you got to get them comfortable because they're hurting. They're in withdrawal.
Absolutely. And just that's a good point. And just generally speaking, it's really hard to do. A lot of forms of this, like talk therapy and group therapy and insight-oriented therapy or even education. It's hard to do that when somebody's not medically and physically stabilized, right? Or even mentally stabilized, for that matter, too. Of course, right? Yeah, it's really hard to do that if somebody's not stabilized. They have to be feel at some level of comfort. Okay, and it's going to take a while before they feel really like themselves and feel really good. It's going to take a while, but at least we can get to the point where they're feeling stable and they're feeling
Safe,
okay.
feeling safe. I mean,
Feeling safe,
at that point,
too.
they're very
Yeah.
insecure,
Yeah.
very scared.
Yeah, that's right. And they're think about it, they're making a decision, a life-changing decision to quit doing the drug they've been doing that they've been so dependent on, right? The chemical they're so dependent on, physically and emotionally, right? And then they're going to go somewhere. They're giving that up, going to some strange place, where they don't know anybody and out of their routine and their lifestyle and their comfort zone and do that. So yeah, that's a good point. This process is very difficult, and then on top of that, feel like crap, feel terrible, right? Have really bad withdrawal symptoms too. So yeah, and so again, like any of us, we can't if we're feeling discomfort or our nervous system is elevated and we're in a bad mood, we're not at our best. It's hard for us to do anything that's really difficult or learn things and so forth. So yeah, these medications can come in really they can be very, very helpful, and during that very sensitive period of time, okay, or even in rehab, even after detox, they go to rehab and they're in residential treatment, and they're still going to feel symptoms, right? They're acute symptoms. They're real, the symptoms that are real, that cause a lot of discomfort and pain. Hopefully, most of those symptoms are done, or at least the worst of them are done when they go over to rehab, to residential treatment. But then they're still going to have symptoms, and post-acute withdrawal symptoms pause, right? And they're both physical and mental. Okay, so they're going to feel that when they go to residential treatment. They're still going to feel it, and like Lori said, John Crombar is going to talk about pause next week, so that'll be the topic next week. You guys will go more into depth with that. Okay, so right now I'm just kind of walking us through the stages of treatment, and then go into recovery, and we'll talk about which medications apply or are relevant to whatever that stage of treatment and recovery. Residential treatment, a lot of times the protocol from detox, some medications will be continued, okay, and some will not be. Again, as their symptoms improve, they're going to need less and less medications. Okay,
It's their level that you're dealing with.
Right. Yep. We're dealing with their level, exactly. Yeah. And as a rule of thumb, most treatment centers do not like to prescribe anything that's addictive either during that time, as a rule of thumb.
I would think.
Yeah. Although, now here's where maybe some controversy comes in, where Subutex is prescribed for people coming off of opiates, detoxing from opiates.
Now, before we go, Subutex, is that the same thing as Suboxone?
Yes, it's very, it's
They're very
the same.
close.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, yes. And that it could be addictive. So, usually the time frame for using that medication in detox is very limited. Okay, and so that's not an ongoing, continuous prescription or treatment regimen. Okay, especially when they go over to rehab, to the residential level of care. So again, for residential treatment, there's medications that are going to make them feel good, and again, that could also qualify as some form of medication-assisted treatment. Okay, so then when people leave treatment, there are medications that could be more for maintenance. Okay, so where I've worked and what I've experienced with patients, of course I don't prescribe it, and I don't give shots or anything like that. I just kind of work with the medical staff does that. I don't do that, but I talk about this with patients, and I guess I'll start with Vivitrol and Naltrexone. Right? And I'll talk about other forms of medication-assisted treatment too, but Naltrexone and Vivitrol are very, very useful tools for someone coming off of opiates and alcohol, actually. Okay, so both of those treatment regimens, Vivitrol and Naltrexone, are very, very very useful and very helpful. So basically, those are medications that are antagonists. Okay, they're antagonistic to opiates, and even for alcohol too. So basically, what they do is they reduce cravings and urges. Okay. And also, if someone uses, they're not going to feel the same effects too.
Right.
In fact, they can get sick if they use opiates when they're on Vivitrol, Naltrexone too. So, and they're not going to feel it, right? They're not going to feel the same effects. So those two medication, Vivitrol is the injectable form of Naltrexone. Okay?
Right.
It's a shot it's a shot with a big needle in the butt, and usually that's the biggest complaint I hear. By the way, is the big needle in the butt. And,
Give it to me in the arm.
Yeah, right. And they're walking funny for a couple of days.
Right.
After that, but on the way out of residential treatment, they'll often get that shot, and then they'll come back in about 28 days or 1 month, and they'll get another shot, and so that's a monthly shot. Okay.
We got everybody suffering with COVID arm. Can you imagine the Vivitrol arm? With
I
that
know,
big
yeah,
needle?
right. That's
Holy
true. I
mackerel.
know, double whammy there.
Right, COVID arm. They got a name for it. Right. Okay, the COVID arm.
Right. And naltrexone, and normally the patient, while they're in residential treatment, or even if they're in outpatient treatment, the doctor will give them the pill form first, naltrexone, which is a daily pill. Okay, and they'll take that pill. And just to see if they can tolerate the medication, basically. And I'm speaking anecdotally here. Most of the side effects that I hear are digestive. So in other words, if someone already has some digestive issues, they might have some stomach problems, stomach upset, maybe some diarrhea, some nausea, or just upset stomach. In my experience, that's what I mostly hear, although there are some other side effects people can get too.
It is critical that you're opiate free too when you start your regimen.
Absolutely, yes, right. So they have to be off of the Subutex from detox for at least a week or 9 days, as I recall when I worked in residential treatment. That was crucial, yeah, because then they can go right into, you have a real bad reaction there, really bad interaction. So no Subutex or detox meds, and no Suboxone within the last week or two, and of course no opiate use within the last week too. So that's important too. So these medications, typically patients are on them for about 6 months to a year, roughly on average. I don't really know of too many cases people being off it long after that. The last stats I read, and this is going back a few months now, I read that the relapse rate for opiates was about roughly 90% after about a year, okay, which is really high. I mean,
That's
really
very high, especially now with the isolation.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not on something like, if you're doing the maintenance, you're on Vivitrol, I think it's very important that you stick with, your groups and your therapist, and of course everything's online, but still very good tools to keep with you during this time, because this isolation can be so detrimental to their outcome of, staying in recovery versus a relapse.
Right, exactly, sure, absolutely. So that, the conditions we've had over the last year have, definitely made a recovery more of a challenge, and staying sober, absolutely. And again, going back to the stats that I had been reading, the relapse rate goes down significantly to about 40-50% with the medication assisted treatment, with the naltrexone or Vivitrol.
Wow.
Okay. So it's a pretty big reduction. It's a pretty good. That definitely improves one's chances of staying sober, right? From 90% down to about 40-50% is really good with the medication. And again, going with the 40-50%, I don't really know how many people were compliant with the medication. I didn't really look at the statistics more closely than that. But and by the way, the reason people would think, why would somebody want to get that needle once a month? Usually, I guess it's kind of like a safeguard, especially if for reasons of compliance. So if someone has a history of not being compliant with medication,
Right.
not taking it every day. There's a lot of people who don't take their medication every day, right? Or they'll miss a day, or
They don't even take their
Right.
vitamins.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get better with that. Yeah, so you know, the needle will help with compliance over time.
Sure, we'll even like the birth control patch for women,
Yeah.
the patches, so, and there's implants also for that.
Mhm.
You know, kind of like.
Oh, right, that's true,
naltrexone.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or there's-
Vivitrol, isn't it?
No,
Has the
for-
the
I'm talking about,
implant.
Oh, I don't know about the implant.
I know something
very
has
well be.
the implant, and I don't remember
it's
what it
the
was.
seed, what is that, which one did they plant the seed, it's,
Oh, for the that's an opiate treatment.
Yeah,
Right?
there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Right. There are forms of
same
there are-
premise, but
there
I
are
was
implants,
just talking about the
pellets,
patch, so I
or
was saying, I
pellets.
mean, the patch works great for people that don't remember to take their birth control and
Right.
such, it's a great.
Yeah, sure,
type thing.
absolutely.
I mean, so,
Yeah, yeah.
it's that aspect, I mean, it's, like you said, some people don't remember to take their medication, it could be anything really.
Right.
But it
yeah.
prevents you like that weak moment, like, no, maybe I don't wanna take, you know, now you're taking it while you're strong, you're down.
Exactly,
Now
right,
you
but-
got like a month,
And down the road, you might think, well, you know,
Or so
I'm
it's-
doing pretty good, you know, and I've been
Yeah.
using them, feeling good, and I'm doing well in life, and you know, almost back to my old self. So yeah, maybe I don't need this pill, right? So so you know, people can rationalize.
where you
know,
talk
Right.
yourself out of anything, you know, oh, I'm better now, I'm feeling better, I'm all good now.
Right, exactly. So, yeah. So the you know the injection once a month is a good safeguard against any concerns or you know or doubts about compliance, right? So and people I've heard a lot of patients come back and say, yeah, it's just easier the shot. You know, I mean, not
Yeah.
that they don't really like the shot in the butt, but they think it's a it's a good trade off for not having to worry
Sure,
about the
and you have that
medication.
psychological factor, saying, well, I'm not gonna get the euphoric feeling from it, so what's the sense? So it's one more way to talk yourself out of using, you know what I mean? You
Sure.
can-
Yeah.
Just
right.
as you talk yourself into, you just like, well, what would the sense be? I'm not gonna really get anything out of it, no euphoria or anything like that, or
Right,
it's just
sure.
be a weight,
So
so,
it's kind of a deterrent in that way.
Sure.
You know. Yeah. So yeah. So it's again it's now this is a tool. Now all these medications are tools,
Right.
and in one form or another.
they're all tool, they're not a cure, they're a tool
They're
to help you
tools, right.
achieve, sobriety.
Right. Remember, recovery. There's the physical, biological, and medical, and then there's the mental, psychological, emotional part, and there's the spiritual part. And the medications help a lot, of course, with the physical aspect of recovery.
Right.
Right. So the rest is recovery is like we always say, it's a whole lifestyle of basically not only behavior change but one's outlook on life and one's
Right.
way of thinking and one's value system and so forth, or even daily habits. Okay.
Even smoking cigarettes, it's in like a smoking cessation type class, it's described in those parameters, it's like being a threefold type addiction. The same as with any drug.
Yeah.
So even cigarettes, they have the physical, the addiction, the emotional, and the chemical
Sure.
addiction.
Yeah.
So addiction's addiction.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, with cigarettes, I hear people talk about also. It's not just the nicotine addiction. It's the actually the behavior surrounding it, or holding the actual
That
cigarette,
phone call.
the phone call.
Yeah.
I haven't smoked in almost 20 years, and I know when I was putting the parameters once up the mountains, I'd said it before, she said, why don't you go out and light a fire, we're gonna sit up at a fire, so I went to look for my cigarettes to get my lighter to light the fire. I hadn't had a cigarette in 15 years at that point.
Right.
But that physical, the mental thing where I related to it, I go, you won't believe what I just went to look for.
Wow. Yeah.
My cigarettes, I haven't had a cigarette.
You had
So-
the setups.
Yeah,
for it,
and
the
it's like a
setup, right?
routine, it's in
Yeah.
your mind, and I was nicotine free for a long time, but it was that psychological thing where I
Yeah.
just equated it with a certain action or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Right. You get the whole right. It's the whole.
So it's kind of weird. It opens your eyes, how technical addiction really is. How it's not just a choice; it's a whole
Your brain is
mental
trained.
type thing like
It's-
that. Where your
yeah.
brain's trained to think that it's
Heavy conditioning, and even
Sure.
Right.
even years later, in your case,
Triggers.
Pappy, these
Triggers.
yeah, and they could
It's-
still be there.
And it's so weird because I get them a lot with cigarettes. I'll be doing something and like the need for a cigarette is so strong because I'm doing something that, I would pick up a cigarette because I was doing it.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to be that long and then all of a sudden needing one.
Yeah. Automatic behaviors, right? Triggers and automatic thoughts too.
Yeah.
Right. Automatic behaviors. Yeah.
Crazy.
Sure. So again, well, that's another reason why these medications, this treatment can be really helpful, because there's a lot of challenges in recovery, and if you have a medication to help with especially the physical part and also the mental part, every little thing can help out, right? Vivitrol and naltrexone are relatively new in the treatment in the realm of medication assisted treatment. So it's a relatively new medication, and it has really minimal side effects. It has some though, and again there are some, and I know patients right now who won't take it because they've had some negative reactions. Right, so there are some. I'm not going to say that doesn't exist, but relatively speaking, they're fairly minor and pretty minimal, and then coming off of them, they're not addictive. So coming off these medications is relatively easy too, compared to a lot of other medications.
Right.
So it's a it's a tool. It's not a cure all, and it's not a panacea for for everything in recovery. But it's just one tool, and I tell people, it's a tool like any other tool in our life, right? And it can help in the process. Okay, Lori mentioned controversy earlier with these medications.
We have a question before we go further. What's the ideal time frame for the addict to stay on the Vivitrol shot?
The shot. Well, I guess I don't know the ideal time frame, but I can tell you what the typical time frame is, and it's about 6 months. 6 months to a year, okay? That's 6 months to a year. Now, I don't know if they stay on it longer. I don't know the pros and cons of that. I could do more research into that, but it's typically 6 months to a year. I don't really know what the problem is if people stay on it longer. But if they stay on it shorter than that, I could see there could be some problems where maybe they're not fully mental or physically or mentally stabilized.
Right.
Right. If they're on it for shorter than 6 months.
Right.
And they're still building their support system and their program, and they're not fully physically stabilized yet, and they might have some post-acute withdrawal symptoms here and there. So, recovery it's a process, and it takes time. So.
And my feeling is, as long as you're on that type of medication, you still need to get your ducks in the row. You need to find your sponsor. You need to find your phone number list. You need to reach out to your therapist. You need to continue meetings. And that's why they call it the Me program, because it takes a group of people to get you to a certain point, and to find strength in your program, no matter what whether it's a 12-step, whether it's a religious program. I just think that is so important for people to understand that these are just tools that get added to your therapist, your meetings, your, working a program, whether it's just, maybe it's not a 12-step program, maybe it is Smart Recovery, maybe it's, the Buddhist, but you need that.
Dharma recovery.
Yeah, the Dharma recovery. Yeah. It's needed. You need that group. You need that fellowship or,
Sure.
connection.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I always say, there's the physical, mental, and spiritual aspect of recovery, and again, the medications can provide the mental, or rather the physical stability, and other physical benefits that could make the rest of recovery possible. Like Lori was just describing the whole process of building up a program, a structure, and a support system, which in my experience, that seems to be pretty important in one's recovery.
And I do see that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people in recovery. And they're in recovery, and they're in recovery for a very long time because they stick with the program until they are strong enough and they feel comfortable enough in their skin to step back and maybe do only one meeting a week or a month or whatever, just as long as they're staying focused on something there. Now, Kate asks what the difference between Vivitrol and Subucade is.
Okay, so the Subutex is buprenorphine, and that's it's a stronger medication, and there could be withdrawal symptoms if you're coming off of that medication, the Suboxone or the buprenorphine, it's an agonist, so it fills up the receptor. It also has properties of being an antagonist as well, where it could reduce cravings, but also where if they use the medication, they're going to get sick. So in other words, if you use opiates and you're on Suboxone, or buprenorphine is the technical name, you could actually get sick. Whereas with the Vivitrol, you're not gonna. You're mostly just not going to feel it, basically.
It's a blend too, because does the Vivitrol have like a naloxone base also?
Right, yeah. So the naloxone is actually part of. Well, no, that's the Suboxone actually.
Has a naloxone. Okay, I know one of them. It's a blend. They're different.
The naloxone, yeah.
Different compounds.
Right,
They
exactly.
do different things.
Right. One's a blocker and one's a
It fills up the receptor. It's an agonist.
yeah.
So it basically fills up and makes you feel, you won't have the withdrawal symptoms and you won't have the cravings. So I hope I answered that question okay. But they are very different medications. So buprenorphine or Suboxone is very different from naltrexone and Vivitrol.
Now, Subucade, that's a pill form, correct?
Yeah, it's a pill form, yes.
And then your Vivitrol, Kate, is a shot once a month, or naltrexone.
Vivitrol is the injectable form of
naltrexone, which is pill form. But I highly recommend anybody that's looking into it to do the Vivitrol shot if you can get it through your insurance, because it's not cheap either.
No, it's not, and that's another thing that comes up too, the cost. So when my patients were getting it when I was working in residential, the cost was roughly $1,200 for a shot. Okay, that's the Vivitrol shot. The naltrexone pills were actually less expensive, but the shot was roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,200, give or take. And when you first hear that, some people hit the ceiling and think, "Oh my God, it's crazy! $1,200 for a shot. I'm going to get another one next month, and then
right
each month."
You're telling me I have to take this for a year?
For a year, right?
Yeah.
So right, but I guess I'll put it in context a little bit here, though. First off, most insurance plans, not all, but most plans will cover that. So you might be thinking, well, why would an insurance plan cover such an expensive treatment? Well, if you look at the big picture, it's actually a lot cheaper than residential treatment. Okay, so in other words, I guess the people, the bean counters or whatever at the insurance companies.
$1,200 a month or $30,000 a month. I mean,
Exactly. Right. So when you look at the big picture there, right, you look at this all in context. The shot is economically, feasible in that way. Right. It's a good option.
It's a good investment. It has good results. So it's like an investment for the insurance
Right.
company.
Right.
They save money in a long shot.
Fred says that he was on Vivitrol for 7 months for alcohol disorder, and he highly recommends it. So, or should I say, he recommends it.
Stop embellishing on the comment, Gil.
Yes, and I hear that a lot from a lot of people that they do recommend the shot and to stay on it for at least 6 months. Most of the people that I know that have taken the Vivitrol shot have been on it for a year. Bob's still trying to find his way here. He doesn't realize he's gotten here yet.
One of those rare instances where
You have arrived.
Thank you.
Took him off a cliff earlier. I took him along to get
It
here.
probably would have, because it was one of those rare instances where the GPS did not work, and
Yes.
brought me in the wrong direction, south.
And let me
instead of
add,
north.
Bob has been here
Yes.
recently before.
Yes.
Little senior moment.
Yeah. So,
But now, we're talking about the positive effects of Vivitrol, and the positive is much more than the negative.
I think that seems to be the consensus. With people, I could say in the research and also anecdotally with patients I've worked with, I've heard a lot of good stuff. Again, here and there, I hear some patients, they'll grumble or they have had some side effects. But in most cases, the overwhelming majority that I've heard have been very positive. And Fred, I'm glad that worked for you, and it sounds like that was a good thing for your recovery. And I'm really glad.
And the alcohol end was added on later. I mean, originally it was really just earmarked for opiates, and they realized that they had a success rate with alcohol. That's awesome.
Some people call that an off-label effect, and I don't know if that's technically if that's the right
Yeah,
phrase.
it might be
here.
labeled now. I mean,
But-
but it's more widely
But
accepted.
so right. So again, I'm not going to go into the underlying pharmacology that much as to why the Vivitrol naltrexone works is effective with alcohol. For an alcohol treatment regimen as well to reduce cravings, but it does. It's been found to do that. And again, if you study this further, when you look at again the pharmacology and the different types of receptors and the way they bind, and it's way more than even just the opiate receptors. So again, this gets very technical.
Right.
I guess,
It's fascinating at a clinical end. I recommend
I know
anybody.
you like that stuff.
I love it. I recommend anybody really looking deeper into it, because it really helped me understand the whole dynamics of addiction more. It now makes much more sense to me.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of touch base on the bad parts of it. And not that they're bad parts. It's just that because we have two other that we want to get into
We're saving the best for last.
before. But we're saving the very heated ones for last.
Yeah.
But I hear a lot of them say, well, I'm not going to take it because, I'm the type of person that, is going to try and beat it. I'm going to try and, get that high that it's taking from me. So when that happens, even though it's blocking that receptor, your body is still filling with that opiate or that alcohol.
Right.
It's my understanding when you're drinking the alcohol and Vivitrol and you continue to drink high that we have a caller calling in. Hello, caller. Oh,
We don't hear ringing.
We have a caller calling in. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lori. It's Diane calling.
Hi,
Hey,
Diane.
It's our friend Diane.
Hey.
I paid her $20, by the way.
There you go.
You know what? I just want to mention, though, that with the Vivitrol shot, that, I think the major con with the Vivitrol shot is really on the side of the user and their intent and their willingness not to use. So I understand with that shot that the huge deal about it is because it blocks the receptors. So even if they use opioids or alcohol, they don't get the high, basically. Because
Correct.
It's receptor. But the problem is that these addicts will use and not get high, so they use some more, and they're still not high. So they use some more, and they're still not high. And what happens is they use so much trying to get the high that their other bodily organs will shut down and they die
Right.
Correct.
trying
You
to
can
get high.
overdose. Yeah, right. You
You
can
can
overdose.
Yes, you can certainly overdose still. And if it's alcohol, you may not feel the effects, but you will slur your words, you will stumble, you will still show the signs of drinking.
You just won't get the
You
euphoria.
won't get that euphoria from it.
Yeah. So that's the real big negative for Vivitrol. I mean, the individual taking it has to have the absolute intent of not using, right?
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because if they do, that could be a deadly course.
Well,
And just to touch base, they're all talking about this in the recovery house after they've spent a day with their counselors and groups, and they sit around and talk about it.
Sure.
So, as loved ones, we have to know that they talk a lot of shit, and we just have to be mindful of that. Just like going into a recovery house. I don't want to go into the recovery house. They have bed bugs. They have this. They have that. Just so that mom and dad or the spouse is like, oh, well, come home. I don't want you with bed bugs and, eating hot dogs. Come home. I mean, that's what they talk about. That's what they want to hear. So, try and discuss with them
people
not
always try
to
beat the system.
right. Everybody tries to beat the system.
Even with naloxone, with Narcan, when you do an opiate reversal with Narcan, people will try to use over the Narcan. They'll try to shoot over it more and more and more, and that's only buying you a window of opportunity. When the naloxone wears off, now you'll have so much opiates in your system, your body can't compensate for it. You're going to overdose again. So they're always trying to beat the system, and nothing's 100%.
Right.
I mean, if you keep using, I mean, there's nothing that's going to safeguard you from that, except if you tie them up, and they'd still find a way.
Right.
But so,
Right.
And just like this,
but we wouldn't stop using Narcan because they're
Right.
doing it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's just giving Vivitrol a bad name because of some people try to beat the system.
And just
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And just like this, if this can save one family member, one person from overdosing or getting into treatment, that's what this is about. This is, just like Vivitrol. If that saves one person from relapsing, it works. Everybody's
Sure.
going to try and beat the system.
Good way to look at it, yeah. And Zion, you make a really good point about certainly one can overdose while they're on Vivitrol, naltrexone. But another way that I look at it too, for perspective, is that, they might try to use while they're on it, but also they're going to try to use when they're not on
it.
right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and it could just take
No,
one. Yeah.
No, the point though is that while they're on the Vivitrol, if they're trying to get high, they're most likely going to die before they feel the high.
Right.
Yeah.
Their
Right.
body's
Sure.
going to shut down from
Right.
the amount of opioids they put in their system, and they're still not going to feel the high,
Yeah.
the body's going to shut down before they ever get that high. So
You're right,
the likelihood
Diane.
of death is high when they're trying to get high while
Yeah.
on Vivitrol.
Right, well said. That's clearly a drawback, clearly in the negative column there,
Right.
sure, yeah.
Right. So I mean, their intent has to be real, is my
Right.
point. If you're
Right.
going to take the
That's
shot
right.
and use it in the sense that it's meant for your intent, it has to be
Right.
positive and real.
Absolutely.
And-
The use of Imodium. They'll take Imodium that'll mimic opiate type reactions. I mean, Imodium that you
yeah.
take, the anti-diarrheal. I mean, you take enough Imodiums, it gives you euphoric effects to some people that mimic an opiate type
Yeah.
high. I mean, so like anything can be abused.
When you mix it with
to
a
the
blood
point.
pressure,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, these are all tools, but if you want to get well, you're going to work the system. You're going to take the advice of those that are doing well. You're going to take those suggestions and you're going to roll with it. If you're not ready, you're not ready.
Exactly.
And you're
Yeah.
going to be
I mean,
this.
they're only tools that help you over the hump to get through, to help yourself. I mean,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And any medication you take for any ailment in your entire life, it works if you take it as intended, right?
It works if you work it. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And if you don't, I mean, yes, God bless you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
you can overdose on any medication. People don't realize that. I mean, you
Sure.
can take too much of your blood pressure medicine. What an overdose means, you're taking more than your body can assimilate safely.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so you could abuse any medication. You could abuse over-the-counter medication and overdose.
Yes.
You know, that's harmless things you would think. You take too many aspirin, you take too many Tylenols, you could affect your liver. You take too many, so like anything can be abused. You could overdose on
Yeah.
any type of medication.
I overdose on chocolate all the time.
Overdosed on the scale overdose. Tilt. No.
But again, it's just a matter of, and I just want people to understand that, you know, your loved one's going to be giving you this information, and in my opinion, if your loved one is saying, oh, well, you know, I can't take that because, you know, I'm going to take too much and overdose.
Exactly.
They're not ready.
They're not.
You know, so,
They're very masterful in these things. Lori's
Right.
100% right.
Right.
I mean, they network together and they come up with these strategies and stuff, and they got any more excuses.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, because in early recovery, they're not always, or maybe they're not in recovery, right? They're out of treatment, but they're still obsessed, completely obsessed, and taken over by this urge to use and the lifestyle, and yeah, and like you guys said, they get together and they talk, and they're not, they're usually not talking about, going to church on Sunday. Well, maybe some of them are, but
Yeah.
we're talking about. The game that's on tonight. They might talk about that sometimes, but a lot of times they're going to talk about the addictive lifestyle, right? And they call them war stories, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or what they're going to do, what
and
they
how
can do.
and how to get out.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to work a program and you're in rehab and you're sitting there and you're talking to them and they're saying, okay, well, you just do this, that, and the other thing, and then they're just looking for the person that'll tell them which meetings to go to get high. Like that. I mean, that's.
loser.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Diane, for calling
call,
in
Diane.
with that.
Thank
Thank
you, Diane.
And like I also said, it's almost as though they read from a script because it's so similar to stories, especially when you go to like parent group meetings or you hear live speakers, you hear like almost the same exact scenario, verbatim. It's like they're reading from a playbook.
Yeah.
And sometimes we could say what their loved one said to them, like when they go in the rehab, like, oh, the food, there's not enough food, we're all hungry. I mean,
Right,
you get there, the food's gone, there's bed bugs. Like, what you have, Richard? Bees?
Yeah,
There's bees stinging everybody in this place. I get the hell out of here.
I need to get out.
My mother's like, there's bees in there. Holy God, Jesus, my baby. You know what I mean?
Do you have your pen? Your EpiPen?
Yeah.
Living Room had a bee problem. I bet you didn't even know that.
Yeah, and I didn't know about it.
Oh,
when I was
the
working,
Mexican killer bees.
I was in a dangerous position working.
Look at
with
that.
the bees
Those
as well.
killer wasps.
Hazardous
or
duty
what,
bag.
what was that
Wow.
thing?
Gosh,
But
man.
yeah, I just wanted to
pretty
touch
creative.
base with that too because Vivitrol's very positive.
Yeah, and you know, again, Diane, thanks for calling. By the way, and, by the way, Diane I only had to pay her $20 to call.
I'll tell ya.
That's $20 well spent, Bob. That was a great call.
Larry raised his to $30. I paid him
Yeah,
$30.
so we
But
have
she
to,
said she's gonna hang up, give others a chance to call.
Right.
But thank God, because I know Larry's chomping at the bit probably.
I know, yeah, he raised his price.
Yes.
So, but you know, Diane makes a good point. There has to be, her main point was there has to be some motivation there. And
There
if there's
has to
not,
be.
You know, it can be
Yes.
pretty dangerous.
we have another caller coming in.
Hello, caller. There we go.
Hello, caller.
Hello, I'm expecting my $20 in the mail real soon.
Larry, you told me the other day you raised it to $30.
Yeah, I want American, not Canadian. Okay,
How you doing, Larry?
What's up, Larry?
doing well. You were talking about one of my favorite subjects, the Vivitrol.
Okay.
I took it too. At the beginning, the first time around, I tried interviews, and they said, "Joe, you're going to get sick if you drink with it." And, well, guess what? Had to try drinking, and boy, did I get sick.
Yeah.
Really got sick really bad, but that didn't stop me. Said, well, maybe that was just a freak thing. I'll do it again. You know, the insane thinking.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
when I relapsed and went to the big brain, and I started to get the Vivitrol shot, and people said, well, how the hell is it? I said, well, I don't know. I am not going to try to drink on it after the interviews thing, because I didn't know what kind of reaction I was going to get.
Sure.
But it was, if it wasn't good, you know, physically, it certainly was good psychologically, because it gave me the fear of not trying to, you know, experiment and take a drink. I
Yes.
said, there's no way. There's only one bad incident I had with the Vivitrol. It's when the one time I went and got my shot, and the nurse gave me a shot, and then she pulled the needle out, she said, oops. And I said, what do you mean, oops?
Yeah.
Something you don't want to hear.
You couldn't have missed. You got two big targets there. And,
Did she put it in your arm, Larry?
yeah. She said, let me just wipe the blood off. I said, wipe the blood off? I said, what are you, life or syringe or what? So I got another shot. You know, that's the only bad thing I had about it. But I don't know about the physical end of it, but the psychological part of it was really great for me. And
Yeah.
Well, Larry, were you twerking at the time when this shot? I'm sorry, Larry. I'm sorry.
If you were twerking, it would be hard for you.
You know what I mean? You try to hit that target, you know? Like,
I know, yeah, you know.
But Larry, with that being said, do you think you would still be doing good if you got the Vivitrol shot and didn't attend meetings and didn't speak to your sponsor?
No, that's just one part of the big process. I mean, the meetings, the sponsor, the steps, it's all part of it, and continuing to do it. And you mentioned earlier about, like, some people wean off the meetings, they go like maybe once a week, once a month. Well, I don't know why, you know, I'm doing the opposite now. Now I go 2 on Monday, 2 on Wednesday, and 3 on Friday, and 1 the rest of the week.
Wow.
So I'm actually going to more meetings than I ever had.
Yeah.
Well, that's because there's no concerts.
Well, yeah. Hey, Larry, by the way, what T-shirt you wearing tonight?
I got, I have a Rush T-shirt
Nice.
from the
Five,
Volume tour from 2010.
Nice.
Nice.
Excellent.
Good.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
Yeah. I'll get off the phone and let somebody else talk. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in about the Vivitrol.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you,
Thanks
Larry.
for sharing, Larry.
Larry, thanks a lot for sharing. Yeah, excellent.
Always
Thanks
a
for
pleasure
the
to hear
call.
from you, my friend.
So, yeah.
Thanks in the mail, I hope.
Okay.
Checks in the mail. Give it to you Tuesday. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Larry. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, too. See you.
So yeah, so there's Larry used it for the for his treatment and recovery from alcohol right there, right?
Yeah.
And it really it helped him with cravings and thoughts of using.
Right.
Now I know with the Vivitrol naltrexone, he's not if you drink with that, you're not going to get the violent reaction that you would get with Antabuse, which is a very
Right.
strong antagonist for alcohol.
Well, don't tell Larry that.
Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I forget I said that. But Antabuse is very. Actually, I was gonna mention Antabuse too as a form of medication assisted treatment, which is an older form of treatment.
Right.
I know it used to be used pretty widely back in like the 70s, the 80s, perhaps even before that. I don't hear a lot of it now. Although treatment centers I've worked at, they did have it as an option.
Right.
I don't hear a lot of it now. Maybe now because people are using the
Right.
naltrexone.
Naloxone been around since 1961.
Yes.
Same age as me.
Oh,
man.
wow.
Yeah, well, two good things happened that year.
Yeah, right.
And with our time right now, it's 10 o'clock. So I kind of want to get the other two in before we close for this evening. And I know it's going to get a little heated.
The taboo.
Yeah, well, with some of these forms of medication assisted treatment, one objection you'd hear is people who have a how can I say this, have a view of recovery or an ideal form of recovery that they think should be drug-free, okay? They call it drug-free treatment, okay? And so that, in other words, no medication beyond, let's say, detox, the detox
Right.
level of care, right? And so, in other words, a form of treatment that's based upon
Abstinence.
abstinence, right? Absolutely, abstinence-based treatment they call it, and it's usually a treatment that involves psychological treatment, substance abuse treatment, recovery fellowship, like the 12 Steps, which is the biggest fellowship. Then there are other fellowships: Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Dharma Recovery, etc. So the fellowship and the spiritual aspect of those programs is very strong. And there's a lot of people who think that, and some people I know, great, really nice, good people I know, serious about recovery, but they think that recovery should not include any medications. And they have their reasons for thinking that, and that's where a lot of controversy comes in as well.
Oh,
Too.
definitely.
So yeah.
Because I think there is a great deal of people living a drug-free, substance-free, mind-altering, substance-free lifestyle from a fellowship, from a 12-step. And in the beginning, it may be a lot of meetings, a lot of calls, a lot of different, group living.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody. Everybody has their own path. And are they sober if they're on methadone or Suboxone? Well, they're taking a mind-altering drug, substance. But they are in recovery because they're not on the street getting it illegally. They're not taking it to get high. They're taking it just to keep themselves.
Right. They're right. So again, this goes back to Diane's point about the importance of motivation in recovery, and commitment to recovery, and of course, the thing with Suboxone and methadone is that there's a problem with what we call diversion. So in other words, taking the medication or in a way that's not proper or not prescribed, or selling your medication. So perhaps you could have a prescription for Suboxone, aka buprenorphine, and or methadone, or you get take-home medications from a clinic, and you could sell it on the street. So that's called diversion. So that's a and by the way, with Vivitrol, naltrexone, Vivitrol, it's hard to divert a medication that's being injected in your butt once a month. So that's hard. If someone can do that.
Ask Larry about that.
Maybe Larry knows some. He's a smart guy. Maybe he knows some.
Elaborate. Elaborate.
That's good. That's good.
I coined a new phrase.
There you go. Elaborate. But even with naltrexone, with the pill, You don't really hear about diversion with that, right? So with being that methadone and Suboxone are, like Lori said, they are mind altering. That there is that risk, and it is a thing. Unfortunately, on the I was going to say on the streets of Philly, but everywhere now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're
Across
in the city,
the
the
country.
suburbs, or where you are.
Doesn't matter if you're in the mountains.
Geographically, and it's everywhere, right? So I'll start with Suboxone, and otherwise known as buprenorphine, which is the technical term. It's both. It has antagonistic properties and agonistic. So it fills the receptor, but it also blocks any use too. So if you use, you're going to get sick. Okay. So now this is a higher grade medication, a different class from Vivitrol and naltrexone. It's more of a controlled substance, and it's usually given by prescription or there are clinics. There are clinics like Suboxone clinics. So the potential for diversion and using the misusing the medication is greater than with Vivitrol and naltrexone. So that alone it can be controversial too, right? Giving somebody that's mind altering, like Lori was saying. For some people that the thought of that doesn't sit well with some people. Okay, but like Lori said, it could also be you could look at this positively as just another tool, and if one's motivated and one is committed to recovery, right, and doing the right thing, it could be a good tool. It could be.
And Kate has here that she was so against methadone too. Many people are dying out there. It's all fentanyl out there. I've totally changed. However, recovery, it's their journey. And I'm with you, Kate. I was the same way as well, because I heard a lot of people, abusing it. And while we're on this subject, and I'm just going to put this out here, if you're seeing a clinic where they're prescribing you your Suboxone or your methadone, and the doctor's bringing you in, you're doing some sort of group, and they're taking your insurance and weaning you down, that's awesome. That's where you want to be. When you're seeing a doctor that only takes insurance, only takes cash, has a line wrapped around the building, and you don't have to come and sit and talk or to a counselor or a group or anything. They're there to get high. They're not working a program. I don't care what you take, whether it's Vivitrol, naltrexone, Suboxone, or
choose one over the other,
or methadone. As long as you're working a program with that, you're getting some type of therapy and counseling, and you're taking it the way the doctors are telling you to take it.
I've seen it save people's lives. Methadone has saved many people's lives. I mean, I know some very hardcore people where nothing worked, and that was their last resort, and they're living normal, productive lives.
I know several people that are on methadone and are living a life there. They have a family. They're buying a home. They have a brand new car.
They got their life back.
They have more than most people do. And it's amazing. So go ahead, Bob.
What you guys say is just as important as what I say, and you guys.
Well, we have the freedom to say more than you do. We understand your situation. You can't be any way opinionated or anything because you're a professional. Me, I can say anything I want because I'm the truck driver. But it's like I can be honest. A lot of our friends are 12-steppers.
Yeah.
And they're very passionate about this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just as passionate as talking religion or talking politics. It gets heated. Yeah. People get angry. They become very opinionated of you. You know what I mean? So it's a slippery slope. You got to be careful
That's
in the
true.
recovery
Yeah.
circles
That's right.
what you talk about and what you promote or don't promote. And sometimes you just don't bring up in certain circles.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. Well said.
And another thing too, and this is hard, when you are taking methadone or Suboxone, and you want to work the program, that you're taking it because you want a better life. You don't have to go into a meeting and say, "Oh, I'm back here and I'm on methadone," because they're going to look at you differently. Because most of these programs are about abstinence.
Yeah, Diane,
So-
theoretically, it's true, Diane.
So why give them that information? They don't need to know it. They just need to know that you are there because you want recovery. You want to feel and live a better life. So go to those meetings. Although they do have a lot of mat-based meetings coming up over the country. So at least they're starting to see this. So
Let me do a Heimlich maneuver or anything over
Yeah,
there?
the root beer went down the
The
wrong
bubbles
pipe.
went up his nose.
Yeah, it's they always have my root beer ready when I come here.
Yes.
That's really,
he's lucky
they
because
don't
most
charge
gracious,
much.
most
He's cheap.
gracious ghost
He's cheap,
or
yes.
host. Yeah, yeah, and like Pappy was just saying, there's there could be very strong feelings about, and Lori said too, about Matt, and especially in recovery circles. So there are people who have an ideal or an idea of what recovery should be and what it should look like, and excuse me, and people, it could lead to arguments, sometimes heated arguments too.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've seen them get very ugly.
yeah, no,
So-
same here. Yeah, and it's perfectly good people arguing with one another, right? Perfectly good people who disagree on these issues, and just have the different ways of arriving at their conclusion. Now methadone, well, I actually worked in, and these they know I worked in methadone for 13 years, from 2002 to 2015 in various clinics in Philadelphia and Chester, and so I know a lot about it. Methadone is an even more intense form of opiate replacement. Okay, so methadone is just a straight up agonist. Okay, in other words, it fills the receptor. It's not an antagonist. It fills the receptor. People could technically still use it when they're on it. Oh, we have a phone call. Why don't I
We
stop
have
for
a
second?
caller
We have a
calling
caller?
in. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lori. It's Diane again.
Hey,
Hey,
Diane
Hi,
again.
Diane again.
Wow, this cost me $40 now. All right, go ahead, Diane.
I hate texting. I hate texting. So I'm calling to ask my question. My question is, Bob, I'm hoping you can tell me. I'm just curious, actually. So we understand that somebody taking Vivitrol typically would take it for 6 months to a year, round numbers.
Round number, yeah.
But I don't have any idea if somebody is on Suboxone maintenance or methadone maintenance. I have no idea how long those maintenance programs run. Is that a 6 month?
They could run a lifetime, Diane.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of where I was going, because I think I know somebody who's been on Suboxone for 2-3 years. And so I didn't know if that was normal and standard or what is the treatment. And I know in both of those cases, too, because they are somewhat addictive, you have to taper off of them.
Sure.
That's
Whereas
correct.
Vivitrol, you just flat out stop. But you have to
Right.
taper off of those. Explain to us, because I don't have a concept in methadone and Suboxone world about the time frame.
Yeah, well, okay, you said you knew somebody who's on Suboxone for 2 to 3 years. I don't know if that's standard, but it's not uncommon, if that makes any sense, right? So
Okay.
it's not uncommon
And
at all.
people have been on methadone for 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with
Oh,
people.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I had.
Something you may even stay on for life?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't understand that. Okay.
I had a patient, and this is probably about 10 years ago, probably about 2011, And because he was on for 30 years at that time. So he started in 1981, and I was working with him in 2011. He was still on methadone, and he built himself a good life.
Most people do. If they're in it to win it, it's
Right.
and a lot of people also, and from my understanding, methadone also helps with pain.
Right. There's an analgesic aspect
Property,
with pain, and Suboxone as well too. Actually,
Right.
So that's a really good point, actually.
Because a lot of people that are in recovery,
Started
that
it.
are addicts, start it because of an injury,
Yep.
cancer, a toothache. Like the toothache goes away, but cancer is long term.
Sure.
People that are in accidents, it's long term. And the reason they got addicted was because of a prescription.
Right.
So, we have to be mindful that these people still need something
Yeah.
to deal with the pain. And as long as they're taking it as prescribed and they're not going on the street grabbing some heroin just to.
And they can't go back to other conventional painkillers, conventional opiates, like Oxycontin, Oxycodone.
Right.
Well, most people don't know Oxycontin, Oxycodone was originally formulated for one, post-surgery, for like a very invasive type surgery to get you over the hump, to take for a couple days a week, for end-of-life patients in hospice,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
for
Right.
battlefield injuries.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be on for
For
20 years.
It wasn't.
Oxycontin, Oxycodone.
It wasn't meant for a toothache.
And I know somebody who
Right,
was
yeah.
on it
Right.
for that long. And
Yeah, the pain management is definitely an issue. So
Yes.
certainly. So, but yeah, Diane, there are people who are on Suboxone and methadone, long-term treatment, and I've seen people and on methadone too, building really good lives and doing it long-term and having take-homes. And typically, these medications are prescribed in a clinic setting in most cases, not all. And and like Lori said, a clinic setting with structure and with a doctor prescribing and nursing services, psychosocial treatment groups and therapy and so forth.
Right.
And some people will argue with you that that's ridiculous, being on for 30 years. They should be put on a taper. They should have been tapered over here. So everybody has their own theory and their own
Opinions, yeah.
beliefs.
And
And,
Patricia, she agrees that she also works with clients and lets them know it's up to them whether they want to use MAT, and she discusses it in length, which is great. And I'm glad that people are out there and really bringing it to people's attention and sharing with them the struggles with it as well as the positives.
Yeah, absolutely. And methadone. I know Pappy would Pappy's into
Numbers.
medication numbers, history, and methadone. It's funny. There's a certain going. Kind of the backstory here. There's a certain mystique with methadone, and people say, yeah, it was developed by the Germans and Hitler for to be used in some sort of chemical or psychological warfare. And yeah, I've heard all kinds of wacky stories on
It's been around a long time.
But there actually it was developed in 1930s Germany actually at that time. Now, I don't know if Hitler had anything to do with the development of it personally, but scientists in 1930s Germany did develop it, and it came about. Ultimately, it became used in the 1960s, early 1960s, at a clinic in New York City and here in this country. So it's been around a good about 60 years now for treatment here, and it's flourished and grown, all over the country now and all over the world. So again, the controversy lies in the fact that it could be. It is mood altering. If someone's not on the right dose of methadone, sometimes it could make one very drowsy and alter the way they think and behave in some ways.
How about Bob? somebody that's on methadone or Suboxone, do those drugs show up on a standard drug test? Let's say that individual had to take a drug test for a job or for various other reasons. Do those drugs show up? Do they look like opioid users or what?
A lot of the drug panels now, the drug tests are more sophisticated than they used to be. So I know a lot of the drug tests now, like Suboxone will come up as buprenorphine, as buprenorphine. That'll come up. Methadone will come up as methadone. in the
Don't
more
they have a
sophisticated.
card or something? Do they show something for like an employee or
I don't know about a card, maybe, but oftentimes we could, or rather, the treatment provider can provide a letter to an employer.
Right,
Yeah, you
right.
know,
Yeah,
so
to
and so's
substantiate, yeah.
substantiate.
And
yeah.
methadone stays in your system a long time.
That's true.
It's very hard to get. Methadone gets into your bones. You know, and it takes a really long time to rid the body of all traces of methadone. And
Yeah.
it's very hard to get off of methadone. It's not
Right.
an easy.
it's worse
It's
than
probably
getting
worse
off of
than heroin.
heroin.
It's a tough detox.
It's
a very tough
a lot
detox.
worse than and
Suboxone as well. Suboxone is a long half life too, but
Yes.
it's not so long.
exactly and
Well,
and
that's kind of what I was asking, because like you can go to a meeting and not divulge that you're,
exactly and you need to, if you're going to go to an AA meeting or an NA meeting or a CA meeting, and they are about abstinence, then you have to keep that inside because it will not be pretty.
Yeah, they're very vocal
Yeah.
about that, and you would know that if you're better off staying in meetings that are based around methadone type friendly meetings with other patients and such. I mean,
And I
you'll learn
just
that early on.
just another negative as well if you're doing Suboxone or Vivitrol, not Vivitrol, naproxen or Suboxone. If you are going to go to a recovery house, there's not many recovery houses that take MAT program.
That's another hard thing. You're right there, Lord. Good point.
So, these are
That's a very good point.
these are decisions that you need to make sure that you're discussing with your counselors. They do have some houses, but there's not many beds in them.
But
So-
they're becoming more and more relevant now than
They're
probably 4 or
starting
5
to.
years ago.
Yeah,
Like,
E-
very
even
hard to find, but
even regular recovery houses are starting to put in
special.
special
Yeah,
housing
you're better
for
recovery
MAT.
houses, people that have a few houses and
Now,
that
not-
are honest and truly.
Yeah, I'm not
Alcohol.
sure. What about Vivitrol? I'm not real sure about the Vivitrol because it's a shot. I'm assuming that that's a different allowance.
They're fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually
Vitrol's fine.
usually that's okay. Yeah, because a lot of our, when I work, in residential treatment, a lot of our patients were on Vivitrol and they did go to recovery houses though, so yeah.
right, yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Right, right,
I would
And-
say most of them actually encourage it, to be honest.
right.
Yeah, I would say that too, Rich. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
They kind of push you. They always would tell
Yeah.
me, like, yeah, I
Right.
got it.
yeah.
Okay, guys, we're winding down. It's 10:29. I
Thanks for
know
the kudos, Kathy.
we had an awful lot to discuss. Thank you so much, Diane, for calling in again.
Yeah, really
See,
great.
Diane,
Thank you,
thank
Diane.
I just want to hit on one thing, and I will be posting this on the page for Living Hopeful, but I think this is very important. Coming up, PROACT and the Council of Southeast Pennsylvania are going to be having a Narcan training. I'm trying to pull it up. Please go on to stay on the page, or come back to the page. Come on, open up. So that you can join in this training. But it's on Wednesday, April 14th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. You do need to register for the free webinar. And Dave Fialco will be the trainer. You will not find
You won't
anyone
find a better person.
better to
Yeah.
explain the Narcan and the training. I will post it on the page. I highly recommend it for anybody, and I highly recommend it for anybody that doesn't understand addiction.
Yeah, he gives the
Amazing.
best explanation out of
Amazing.
anybody we've seen.
Right. We also
And
have coming up as well, Generations of Love, April 16th, 2021, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. It is loveisgrand.org. It's through the Bucks County Opportunity Council. It's a virtual family night, Bucks County Opportunity Council, but it is for grandparents that are raising or have custody of their grandchildren with loved ones still in addiction or possibly in recovery. So there are two great things that are coming up that you really should check out, and I will post both of those into the page. I got them today. I'm already registered for the Narcan training, which I've done 11 times now, and you learn
remember,
something
even if your
new.
loved one doesn't live with you and they're still in active addiction, they come and visit you and such, or they're prone to relapse, it's very important to have Narcan on hand in your home. You never know. And especially some people overdose in their home they grew up in because it's a trigger for them. It's a comfort. And God, my God, so many people have found their child in their own bathroom when they're visiting in an overdose type state because they had a weakness, they had a trigger for that. So it have Narcan on hand. It's a life-saving drug. It's simple, super simple to use. The training is very minimal. I mean, they just kind of tell you what to look for, this and that. Don't be intimidated by it. It's a nasal type spray. It's like taking those drops.
Right.
Boom, done. It's a miracle drug. I've been on several more reversals than I even want to remember and talk about. It works. It's great. It's easy. It saves hundreds of thousands of lives.
And I just, with that, we're closing up. Again, come back to the page, enter any comments, any questions. I check them often. If you have a question, please reach out to me, message me.
Sure, you can call Lori at that number, even when the show's not on, and we'll go through her.
Right. You
She'll
can
get-
call or text
or text.
267-737-8031. I'm available anytime. If you have any more questions or concerns for Bob, I will give him the information, and
Sure, and he'll be checking probably the text that come in on this line.
yes.
So, I mean, if you got a
Sure, yeah.
question, you can ask her. He'll be
Absolutely.
reading the reviews, and
Yes.
then he'll get back to you.
So everybody have a great week. See you next Friday. We will have John Crombar in the house.
The Prince of Parkwood. Will he be wearing a cape and scepter?
I think so.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He will be discussing the 12-step program, and we're going to be touching base on PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. So check us out Friday night, and everybody have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in, folks, and tell your friends.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, please share this out. Please,
Remember,
please, please share it out.
Recovery
And-
works if you work it, baby.
yes, peace out.
Peace out.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.